aboard for week number 2 of the 5-week Pole Position Raceway Live Racing Series. Matter of fact, the racing is going on directly behind us. We're set up at the Monster Energy start-finish line here. As a matter of fact, right alongside of us, we have some free Monster samples being handed out. So if you happen to be in the Syracuse area and you want to pop in here to Destiny USA, racing activities will continue until about 9 o'clock this evening here for the second week of this series. Now that means that tonight is the halfway point for drivers that are trying to reach the championship, which will be held here at the Destiny USA location in 3 weeks' time. So they've got this week and 2 more weeks after that at our locations here at Destiny USA in Syracuse, at the Marketplace Mall in Henrietta, and at the Walden Galleria in Buffalo. 3 more weeks to earn points. Top 3 in points from each location converge here on championship night at Destiny USA to run the championship event, which will again feature a little bit of a unique format that is different from the standard format that's utilized for each week of the live racing series. Our guest tonight is a guy that's run on 2 surfaces, but has spent most of his time driving what they like to call the fastest short track cars of the planet, the super modified. And that'll be Albert Sidderly, 7-time Oswego track champion. He's going to be joining us in the next segment of the program. But let's get started with the latest news from the world of motorsports. Well, it wasn't a photo finish, but it was a close finish. Well, kind of, sort of, when the green flag came out on the overtime start in the Auto Club 400 at Auto Club Speedway of Southern California for the NASCAR Sprint Cup Series. Everybody kind of thought Kevin Harvick pretty much had the field covered. Yeah, that didn't happen. There was this dude named Jimmy Johnson that just basically smoked from third to first in the first couple of turns and then walked away to about a 1-second victory. That was win number 77 of his career. That breaks the tie with the late Dale Earnhardt for 7th on the all-time victory list. And was Harvick finishing second, Denny Hamlin 3rd. 4th spot went to Joey Logano. Ricky Stenhouse Jr., his first top 5 since last year's spring race at Bristol. He's been coming on strong and carrying really the primary flag bearer for Roush Fenway Racing this year. Rest of the top 10 were Chase Elliott, Carl Edwards, A.J. Allmendinger, who came from the rear of the field, Brad Keselowski, and Jamie McMurray. Pole sitter Austin Dillon wound up finishing 24th, but he did win Saturday's TreatMyClot.com 300 for the NASCAR Xfinity Series. And this was kind of a crazy finish in this one. This is everything that happened in the final lap. Your leader, Kyle Busch, slowed low on fuel. Daniel Suarez takes the lead going down the backstretch. Then he runs out of fuel. Kyle Busch gets back up front, even though his left front tire is flat and he's out of gas. And then Austin Dillon comes from a half a lap down and passes him just before the finish line to take the win. You really can't ask for any more drama than that in the final lap of a race unless somebody comes across the finish line upside down and on fire. Darrell Wallace Jr. finished 3rd. Suarez wound up coming through at 4th. He now has a 10-point lead over Elliott Sadler in the Xfinity Series points. Sadler was 5th. Kevin Harvick, Brendan Gaughan, Kyle Larson, Brandon Jones, Justin Allgaier completing the top 10. A couple of milestones at the NHRA Gator Nationals in Florida this past weekend. Brittany Force getting her first Top Fuel win Sunday, beat Terry McMillan in the finals. And John Force Racing got their first career double as Robert Height picked up the victory in Funny Car. Greg Anderson was your Pro Stock winner. Eddie Krawiec won in Pro Stock Motorcycle. Well, we kind of wonder what the Formula One season was going to look like this year, if it was going to be more McLaren-Mercedes dominance. We don't really have an answer to that question, I think, yet, but we did have a wild Australian Grand Prix to open the season. Nico Rosberg took off, but then Sebastian Vettel got in front of him going into the first turn. Kimi Räikkönen got in front of him, and all of a sudden the Ferraris were running 1-2 for a little bit. The entire shape of the race, though, changed on lap 18. And if you have not seen this on a highlight reel somewhere, go find this on YouTube or Google. Horrifying crash involving the McLaren Fernando Alonso. He got over the wheel of one of the Haas F1 cars and went for a nasty tumble, first barrel rolling and then going end for end through the gravel pit and winding up against one of the barricades far off the racing line on the street circuit at Adelaide. Fortunately, Fernando was able to climb out of what was left of the car. He was okay. But this brought out a red flag and about a 10-minute hold because of Formula One procedures. You have to wait so long before the race restarts, blah, blah, blah. As the race went on, tire strategy became a key element, and Sebastian Vettel and Ferrari made the strategy call to pit him while he was leading and put him on the super soft tire while Nico Rosberg and Lewis Hamilton were running the soft tire and trying to baby those tires to the finish. That strategy backfired on Vettel. He wound up finishing third. Rosberg, Hamilton 1-2. Daniel Ricciardo comes in fourth for Red Bull. Felipe Massa finished fifth for the Williams team. And how about Roman Grosjean finishing sixth, earning championship points for Haas F1, the American F1 team, in their debut race. That's almost unthinkable in Formula One terms for a team to earn championship points out of the box. Jason Anderson did not cross the checkered flag first at the Monster Energy Supercross Saturday in Detroit, but he was officially given the win. And here's what happened during the race on lap 7. Race officials ruled that the leader, Ryan Dungey, ignored a red cross flag for a down rider. You're supposed to roll the jumps and not pass when that red cross flag is out. Well, apparently they determined that he did. He got a 2-spot penalty, so that meant that Anderson picked up his first win since January at Anaheim, his second win of the Supercross season. Marvin Musquin, who is Dungey's Red Bull KTM teammate, finished second. Dungey winds up third, but he still got the point lead going into the next round of Supercross competition. And Stewart won, but it wasn't James. It was his younger brother, Malcolm, picked up the 250 East Region Supercross event. Donnie Schatz dominated the sweep, dominated by sweeping the FVP Western Spring Shootout for the World of Outlaws Craftsman Sprint Car Series at the Stockton 99 Speedway in California, which is a nice turnaround from missing the feature event 1 week ago at the Thunderbolt Raceway in Tulare. Dirt Car Northeast officials handing out penalties last Thursday to Billy Pouch and Tyler Seary, both found to be in violation of dirt car rules at the Dirt Car Nationals at Volusia Speedway Park in February, a violation of Rule 11.1J, which has to do with chemically altering tires. Seary and Pouch are suspended from all dirt car sanctioned events till May 28th. Seary fined $2,000 plus the amount of his purse and a $150 lab fee. Pouch also fined $2,000 plus the amount of his purse and a $150 lab fee. Both drivers will be on probation until the end of the year. By the way, if you want to read both sides of this story, not only Billy Pouch and Tyler Seary's comments, but also comments from Mike Perotti, the Super Dirt Car Series director, you can check that out in this week's Area Auto Racing News. Well, there's supposed to be some dirt modified racing this weekend in Pennsylvania, and it didn't happen. The Race of Champions Dirt Modified Series Icebreaker 40 at Selinsgrove Speedway was canceled. There was a report on CNYMotorsports.com that the decision was made solely by the racetrack and not with any involvement of Race of Champions officials, but we don't believe that to be the case. Read other reports where it was a mutual decision between team members in the pit area and Race of Champions officials, who apparently paid tow money to all the teams for coming. Only 11 or 12 cars were present on a bitterly cold day, temperatures in the 40s, wind chill in the 30s, and almost zero people in the grandstands. The drivers were given the opportunity to take some hot laps on the racetrack, which prepped it ready to go, but unfortunately the event didn't happen. So that catches you up on all the latest news from the world of motorsports. We're going to take a commercial time out here coming up and get to our guest this week, Otto Sidley, who is sitting alongside us here. I want to tell you about something cool that's going on. Well, you know about March Madness, especially if you're following Syracuse University. They're in the Sweet 16. Hooray, hooray. Well, how about some racing madness? That's going to happen for the first time ever at Pole Position Raceway locations in Syracuse, Rochester, and Buffalo on April the 3rd, where you can join a competition to determine the fastest racer in a field of 32. Now, the way it works is all the participants are placed in the qualifier. Top 16 go to round 2. Then it's cut to 8, then a cut to 4. And the final 4 will compete to find out who the Racing Madness champion is. By the way, it's $150 for the winner, $75 for second, and free races for third and fourth place if you make the cut. It's April 3rd. Events will start at all 3 Pole Position Raceway locations at 5 o'clock in the evening. Racing fee is $15 per race plus a one-time registration fee of $10. You can register online or the day of the event. And the only requirement is you need to be over 58 inches tall with a valid driver's license. And you get to come out and race and see if you can be the winner of Racing Madness. We're going to take a commercial timeout, and when we come back, we'll visit with 7-time Oswego Speedway Super Modified champion Otto Sidley as we continue here on Pole Position Raceway Live.
McGuire's Move-In Metal in March sales event is going strong at all 8 McGuire locations. Come get once-a-year deals on every vehicle in stock, including our massive inventory of pre-owned vehicles and certified pre-owned cars, trucks, and SUVs from the 18 brands we sell. Every one is clearly marked with our upfront lowest Move-In Metal in March prices, so there's no need for stressful negotiations and never any sales pressure. And when you buy any pre-owned vehicle from McGuire, you buy with confidence, knowing every vehicle has passed a comprehensive 175-point mechanical and cosmetic inspection. Plus, you're covered with our exclusive 3-day money-back guarantee and a 30-day exchange policy. Don't love it? Simply return it. Decide to keep it, and you get our lifetime engine warranty at no additional charge. McGuire's Move-In Metal in March sales event is our biggest event of the year, and it's going on now at all 8 McGuire locations. But hurry, it all ends March 31st. The McGuire family of dealerships: Ithaca, Trumansburg, Watkins Glen, Syracuse, and quick as a click at McGuireCars.com.
Kitchen Express presents The Kitchen Sink.
Kitchen Sink here. I've been in this same kitchen a long time, so it's great to see the new arrivals from Kitchen Express. Boy, those old cabinets were showing signs of age. Chipping paint, old creaking hinges, and sticking drawers. They were not a fun group. But now, what a difference the new Showplace cabinets from Kitchen Express make. They are beautiful, and they have great features like soft close doors and drawers, and roll-out trays. I especially like Susan. Lazy Susan, that is. The one in the corner with the graceful turntable. We're going to have many years to get acquainted, if you know what I mean. Whew! Is it getting warm in here? Or did someone just turn on my hot water?
Kitchen Express does it right the first time in order to last a lifetime. Stop in today and learn about the Showplace Cabinetry 2 Ways to Save program. Kitchen Express, Hiawatha Boulevard East, or at kitchenexp.com. You'll be impressed at Kitchen Express.
And welcome back to Pole Position Raceway Live, here exclusively on Finger Lakes News Radio and through our podcast partners at BSP Worldwide. Glad you could be with us here. Paul Szmal sitting alongside a 7-time Oswego Speedway Super Modified Track champion who's won, well, in just about every kind of race car you can imagine on every kind of surface you can imagine, because we were actually reminiscing before we went on the air here. One of my first announcing jobs was at a place called Skyline Raceway, which is still open to this day under new ownership this year, in fact, south of Cortland, New York. And while he was busy playing around in a 4-cylinder at Albany, Saratoga, and some tracks in the Capital District, once in a while, the guy next to me, Otto Sitterly, would come up the mountain and race up there on the track that's literally hanging off the side of the mountain. But now he drives the fastest short track cars on the planet, the Super Modifieds at Oswego. So I would say that is quite the upwardly mobile path, and however many years it is you've been racing. How many years has it been that you've been behind the wheel of a race car?
I started racing in high school in 1988.
Holy cow! Wow. What was your first car?
1974 Ford Mustang.
Now, was that a 4-cylinder?
It was a 4-cylinder car.
Yeah, there you go. And that was at Albany,
Saratoga, and a little bit of Devil's Bowl, Vermont.
Okay. Devil's Bowl is a big track for a 4-cylinder car, isn't it?
Yeah, that was a fast place.
Yeah. Now Devil's Bowl is a paved track with the dirt track inside the paved track, which is kind of different. But let me take you all the way back to the beginning, Otto. What was the first race that you remember going to?
Oh, you mean like ever, before I drove anything?
Yeah.
I don't know. I was told I was carried to Fonda Speedway as an infant, so I mean, I don't know. I can remember my whole life attending, Fonda Speedway with my mom and my sisters, and watching my father. He ran there he probably had a 25-year career at Fonda. Always a modified guy, or then later years he ran big block and small block in the same night. So I mean, I went to born and raised at Fonda Speedway,
which is for those of you that don't know, right off exit 28 of the New York State Thruway on the what's technically the Montgomery County Fairgrounds, better known as the Fonda Fair, where if you go over the wall on the backstretch, you land in the Mohawk River.
Qualifier 1 now.
My father did that too.
Oh, did he?
Oh yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, in the late 70s, I remember he went got together with somebody and went. I think the wall ended, and he took an abrupt right after the wall, and just made it to about the firewall in the water.
Oh, wow. Wow. Hey, I've actually stood off the edge of that, stood about knee deep in the water there off the Mohawk, and yeah, it's interesting. You can get a little bit of a launch there if you get off of that wall there. It's one of the more characteristic racetracks, I think, of any in the state of New York, maybe the entire Northeast. But then again, the track that you're running at now has
absolutely Steel Palace. A lot of history there for sure.
Yeah, and I want to get into how you got into the super modifieds in a minute, but let's talk a little bit about your dirt racing accomplishments, because you started with the 4-cylinder, you got up into modified racing.
I actually I ran a couple years in a dirt sportsman car. I ran. My dad helped me. I left the 4 cylinders. I knew it was time I had to do something, and of course money was always a little bit of an issue, but I had to do something, and of course money was always a little bit of an issue, but my dad had I think it was a 1991 in a modified, and ran with a bunch of good guys. Ran against Jimmy Phelps and Pete Campione and Larry Besner, Ray Zemkin, a lot of those old guys, and they were all good guys to race with, and had pretty good success that one year, and then I don't know, just sort of got away from it there for a year or two. I sort of tried to do my own thing. I don't think I raced in '94, and I ended up going to Fulton Speedway with my dad to help him out, and a high school buddy, and Fulton rained out, and I had never been there, and we decided when we pulled out of Fulton Speedway, it looked clear up towards Oswego, and I said I want to just go and try it. And Buddy went up there and we watched, and that was the first time I ever saw the place, was '94, and just sort of got bit. But as far as the dirt stuff, I only ran, I think, 2 years in a sportsman car was all I ran after the 4-cylinder days.
Did you have a desire to try to move up to a 358 or a big block? Was it a money thing, or?
I did, and then everything's a long story, of course, but there was differences of opinion with my father, and I think that's pretty common with a father and a son. He saw things as back then as a 45-year-old, and I saw him as a 22-year-old, and so I mean, he had his way of looking at things, and I don't know as though he was wrong, but I'm not going to totally admit that he was right. But I think back then it was one of those deals where I sort of got an idea, and I thought that I wanted to try something different and maybe have my own identity of sorts. And when I could have easily, I played with the idea of getting my own car and running a 358 mod or whatever, and I'm sure had I just decided to do that, it would have been no different. Just for some reason it struck me that I wanted to do my own thing, and even if the deck was totally stacked against me, going 2 hours away and running on a surface that I didn't know anything about, and these exotic cars that I didn't know anything about, of course it's paid off in the end. But
so that first visit is what hooked you when you and your buddy went up to Oswego Speedway. We're talking with Otto Sidderly here tonight on Pole Position Raceway Live. What was it? Was it the cars, the speed, the atmosphere? If there's one thing that stood out, what was it that kind of reached out and grabbed you and said, maybe you say, I want to do this?
I'm not sure. As a lifelong race fan, and I consider a racer. You're a racer, Paul. I don't know if you've ever driven anything in your life, but you're a racer. Anybody that's been around racetracks and goes and they just have racing in their blood, I consider that person a racer. So just for me to go there and to see that, to smell the alcohol and to smell the burning rubber, and then the speed, and then just the exotic cars. I think just the speed and the awe of the place just grabbed me, and it was one of those things where I went there, and for some reason I don't think the small blocks ran that night, and to see those big blocks, to me that night, it wasn't anything that I looked at and said, well, geez, this is what I want to do one day. But I definitely looked at that and said, wow, this is a pretty neat place. And when the Carusos came out with a small block division, the first time I actually went and I saw that class, I looked at it and said, there's a fork in the road here. Do I go to the left and I stay with a dirt modified or a dirt sportsman of some type? Or do I go this way with this small block super modified? It looked like it was as affordable as a small block modified would be. And, I don't know. I just think that something there, all of what you talked about, grabbed me and got my attention.
And for people that don't know the history of the small block super modified, for the longest time, Oswego Speedway was a one-division program. Supers and nothing but supers on a Saturday night. 3 heats, 2 semis, Conti, 45-lap feature. That was the old school program. It caused a lot of ripples when the Carusos decided to introduce a feeder division that was based on an IMCA modified style chassis, but had a little bit of a resemblance to a super modified. It didn't have the offset. The engine was in the center of the chassis. It was a small block Chevrolet engine on a basic Chevrolet frame rail, but it kind of sort of looked like a super. It was just less powered and on a smaller tire. It didn't take too long for that class to catch on, and when it caught on, it really caught on big.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think you're right. I like your wording. Ripples, to say the least. When you have that Champagne fan sitting up in the grandstands, and they know big blocks, alcohol injection with big fat tires, and names like Champagne and Bellinger, Swift, A-Bold. When you have all of that, who wants to get something less in their eyes and have to sit here and watch this thing in between our super modified heats and feature? And obviously, there's been, I would say, there's been some really good drivers came from that class, and it probably took 4 or 5 years for it to really catch on. And when it did, now there's some really good racing going on in that class, and there has been for a long time.
And it's accomplished the purpose for which it was intended to be, which was a feeder division to get drivers into the super modified ranks, because many of the current super modified drivers aren't graduates of that small block super category.
Absolutely. I would say the biggest guy, really the first big name, in my opinion, because it's somebody that through my career I've been friends and acquaintances with him and his brother, and they were a benchmark in both of the classes by the time they were finished, was the Furlong boys. Greg Furlong, he came from that class, and it's like he was, in Doug and Romy Caruso's eyes, he was the cookie cutter for what they tried to do with that class.
Right.
I mean, if you could put a slab of dough out there and chop out a piece and say, this is what we want to do, he was the first one.
So you started in the small block super class at Oswego. How many years did you run in that division?
I ran part-time. I mean, I always did everything my early part of my career on my own, money-wise. So I started in 1995, and I ran part of 96, and then I didn't return until it was 98, 99. So I ran 4 different years, but the first 2 were sort of partials. 98 and 99, I ran all of those races. And we finished right up there in points. I don't remember. One year we might have been 6th or 8th, and then we were 3rd that last year. But with the last year I ran that class, we won a quarter of the races. There was 12. We won 4 of them. And at the end of the year, it was sort of like when I was done with the 4-cylinder. I knew it was time. I didn't know exactly how I was going to get the nickels to run a super modified, but I knew it. I had to move on to something, and super modified was really the only smart choice at that point.
We're going to take a break here, but when we come back, I want to talk about the genesis of that super modified career up to the present day, the track championships, the classic races, and all that stuff. We're talking with Otto Sitterly, who is a 7-time Oswego track champion, getting ready for what will be his 16th year of competition at Oswego Speedway in 2016. More coming up with him. I want to remind you one more time about the Racing Madness promotion that is happening at Pole Position Raceway. And again, this is at all 3 locations: Walden Galleria, Buffalo, Marketplace Mall, Henrietta, Destiny USA, Syracuse. You can sign up now. It's a one-time registration fee of just $10. Then it's $15 per race. But you're basically slotting yourself into a 32-person bracket. And you'll start with a qualifier where you're trying to set the fastest lap. 16 fastest go on to the next round. Then the cut becomes the 8 fastest from that round. And then we get a final 4. The final 4, they're going to go and do their thing. And up for grabs, $150 for the winner, $75 for second, prizes for third and fourth if you make the final 4 cut as well. And, you just need to be 58 inches tall, have a valid driver's license. You may have never raced before in your life, But if you want the experience, and believe me, once you get out here, it's going to hook you, just like Otto was talking about how he got hooked at Oswego. You get into one of these things and feel the speed of these electric-powered carts that can do up to 40, 50 miles an hour, accelerating from a standing start in about 3.5 seconds. Believe me, it's going to hook you. Want to find out more, go to polepositionraceway.com or look for Pole Position Raceway Rochester, Pole Position Raceway Syracuse, or Pole Position Raceway Buffalo on Facebook. More coming up as we continue here on Pole Position Raceway Live.
The beauty of Finger Lakes Health is you really have all coverage of orthopedics in this area and staying close to home for expert care.
The emphasis of our practice mostly is elective treatments of conditions such as hip, knee arthritis, conditions of the spine, conditions of the upper extremities, hands, elbows, and shoulders.
It really is what we'll call one-stop shop.
I am Dr. Chibu Akamnanu. I will get you moving.
I'm Dr. Mark, and I'll get you moving.
315-789-0993. Selecting a nursing home for a loved one isn't easy until you've discovered Elm Manor Nursing and Rehabilitation. Elm Manor delivers the highest level of care, comfort, and compassion, amenities and activities that will enrich body, mind, and spirit. A place to call home. To learn more about Elm Manor, a Hurlbut Care community, call 585-222-CARE or visit hurlbutcare.com.
Let our family care for yours.
This is Jewel Dolan, the business manager for the Finger Lakes Radio Group. As customers of Seneca Office Products for many years, we always receive prompt delivery and customer service. With just a phone call, Stu and his staff always help us find everything that we need, from toner to paper products to typewriter ribbons. And they deliver it right to our door, avoiding the hassle of big box stores. There is no delivery fee, and we are always greeted with a smile. So the next time you need office supplies, call Seneca Office Products at 315-568-4183 or visit them on Fall Street in Seneca Falls.
This month only, pay no sales tax at Carpet House. That's right. Carpet House will pay the sales tax on your purchase of carpet, vinyl, luxury vinyl, laminate, area rugs, and installation. See store for details. Snap together luxury vinyl, just $3.99 a square foot, plus 0% interest for 12 months for qualified buyers. Flooring made easy with the name you trust and no sales tax. Carpet House, Grant Avenue next to McDonald's in Auburn, and mycarpethouse.com.
Flooring made easy, the name you trust is Carpet House.
All right, good luck.
And welcome back to Pole Position Raceway Live here tonight at the Pole Position Raceway at Destiny USA in Syracuse. It's week number 2 of the 4 weeks of qualifying leading up to the top 3 from each of the 3 Pole Position Raceway locations, converging here in Syracuse in 3 weeks' time for another championship for a series. We had the first championship, the Upstate Championship, back in the fall of Rochester. Syracuse is the host location for the championship coming up. We're talking with our guest, Otto Sitterly, and in the first segment that you and I have talked, we've been talking kind of a little bit about your background and getting drawn into Oswego Speedway, running in the small block super class, which is the feeder division that was created for the super modified. So let's go back to that era around 99, 2000. You were kind of at that fork in the road again, where you had taken the fork to go to the limited super on the asphalt and the small block super. Now you're at the fork in the road of, well, I've done well with the small block. I want to try one of these full-blown supers. How am I going to get it done? How did that whole process happen?
Well, basically what happened is we had a really good piece at the 99 season. It was a really good car, and we found a buyer when we were able to get good money for that whole operation. And, Doug Caruso was instrumental in helping me. Basically, and the Furlong boys, especially Pat Furlong, and just giving me suggestions and setting me, pointing me in the right direction. I went to Jeff West, who, I knew of him. I went to his shop, and he had 2 cars he was selling out. He was going Silver Crown Racing. I ended up buying his backup car that Bentley had won the Classic with maybe 2 years prior to that. And I found out the information on the motor. It was all freshened. And, he had a whole operation, and I really didn't have to put a lot of money from my small block sale to get into that. And, with the help of friends and sponsors, we were able to get into that car, and, we showed up. Actually, Doug, the one time ever, he he said this was like a shot in the arm for you. He says you get one of these. And Furlong was doing a tire test at the end of the '99 season. I had purchased a car, and Doug called me and said, if you want to bring that up here, you can run it, take a few laps. We won't charge you a dime, but it's the one and only time we'll do this for you. And went up. It was Bentley's tires, whatever they were. They had air in them. And Jeff West and Furlong, and those guys were there, and Jeff West helped me and, gave me some guidance. It's quite different driving a small block versus the big block car. And I remember we got right down to, by the end of the night, I started out, my goal was, if we could hit 18 seconds, I knew that we would, I would be happy. It's faster than a small block. And by the end of the night, I think I went out 4 times, and I was 17 threes. Pretty solid on used tires. So looking back, that was pretty good.
And you mentioned the contrast, and that's what I wanted to ask you about. The cars you had driven on dirt, predominantly Chevrolet 350 cubic inch engines, pretty much the same thing for the small block Super. It's a 350 Chevrolet block. It's a 2-barrel carburetor. Doesn't exactly have a lot of as much torque or horsepower. Now you're getting into a car. This is like stepping into an Indy car. It doesn't, it's a lightweight car. It's got a 467 cubic inch fuel injected big block engine on super wide tires. The engine is hanging off the left side frame rail. That's 66% left side weight. Yeah. So 2/3 of the weight of the car is hanging off the left side. You've never experienced anything like this before. What was that first time going out on the racetrack like when you hit the loud pedal?
Well, the first thing was when I started the car, because I've never had to push start a car. So that was the first impression I had from this thing, was I couldn't believe how bad it rattled and shook. And I was only going 10 miles an hour. But the whole thing was shaking. It was unbelievable. And then I made sure I got some heat in the tires, and it was incredible. I could feel the left side weight. And I knew, that you had to be careful with this thing, but the acceleration rate is incredible. And I mean, I was in some big block cars of my father's at various times, and this thing, because of being hooked to the ground and it weighs 1,800 pounds with 850 horsepower, it's quite a machine.
Yeah, when we talk about push starting, these cars don't have onboard starters. It's basically in gear or out of gear, so you roll it, dump it, boom, it fires up and it roars to life.
Yeah, definitely. Like I said, it's amazing too. For as much as you would have invested in a super modified, you get a half a car. You don't have a starter, you don't have a clutch, you don't have a transmission. It's like they took half of it. So
right,
I mean,
but that's what makes these cars so unbelievably fast. Is you take away all that rotating mass, and it's instant acceleration, instant power off that fuel injected motor. There's nothing else like it.
No, absolutely. I mean, the closest thing probably in our area to something like that would be maybe a sprint car. But it's a little bit more forgiving in some situations with the dirt. But that's the only thing I can imagine would be comparable, is because of the no transmission and having to push start them.
So tell me about the first full season driving Super.
I learned a lot. I learned where everything was and exactly how to hit it. If it was on the track, I think I ran it over or ran into it.
I want you to go out there and hit the pace car.
I did all of it. I mean, I learned everything not to do. So, I mean, and I still, 16 years later, I think I still have to relearn some of those things. But, I think that we finished in the top 5 a couple times the first year, and we showed a lot of speed. My biggest thing, how you can always, if you could have a do-over in life, my biggest thing would have been, I would have kept that car for another year or 2. I was always tried to be better and better, and I've got a new car, and then we had to relearn everything, and I probably did that 2 or 3 times in my career at least that I shouldn't have. But I mean, as the years went on, each year, definitely improvements, and by my 3rd year, I bought an old Mike Muldoon car. By my 3rd year in the class, we were a contender. The 3rd year in the class, I finished runner-up to Sean Muldoon and Mike Muldoon in points. It was Mike was the owner and Sean was the driver. The next year, finished second to Mike Muldoon and Joe Gozick. So we had a couple of years, and we were very close. We were nipping at their heels. And it took me, at the end of the 2nd year, I won my first feature in a big block car.
How about tell me about the first championship season.
The first year I actually won was able to secure a championship. I bought a Hawksby car from Joe Hawksby. It was in 2006, and I basically saved my nickels and dimes. I was on the verge of didn't know if I was going to stay in the class anymore or not. It was, everything sort of evolving with these inboard cars. The cars were very similar to what we have now, and this was in 2006. And I ended up, I bought a motor from Doug Holmes and the car from Joe Hawksby, and that was probably the best move of mine. It was a career move. We ran 10 races, and I won 6 or 7 of them that year. I mean, we were first or second almost every week. Definitely a fast car.
You must have been over the moon to have made that progression and in picking up a championship at one of the toughest places to earn a championship.
It was definitely, I don't always reflect on things probably like you should, but I can remember thinking to myself crazy things that night. You had to go out and secure the heat race, qualify in the heat race to be sure you could start the feature. All it would take is some silly little thing, crash out for the night, and you're done, and now the next guy in line could pick up the pieces, and that would be over. So I can remember, talking with the guy at the beginning of the night, and it's like, this baby steps, just to be able to get through that heat race. And I remember we went out, we won the heat race, and that's all we had to do. We, from just by doing that, we secured the championship. So definitely a memorable moment in my career.
So how many championships did you win on your own before you hooked up with your current team situation with the Cotra car?
That one and only one. In a super modified, I won one championship in 2006. I sold that car at the end of the year with the thoughts of possibly just bowing out for a while, or if I could, I wouldn't want to say I'd quit. That way, if I ever decided to come back, I didn't have to eat my words. But John, I sold the car, and that winter I got the phone call from the illustrious Johnny Nicotra, and things really took off from there. When he called me about putting a car together, it was for Davey Hamilton, and it was going to be he would pay me to put the car together. I would run it a couple of times, shake it down, it would all be ready for Davey, and he would come in and run it, and our deal would be over. And after I ran a few weeks for him, Davey came in, he ran the car. Well, I don't even think that Davey had run, and John bought another Hawk car from Eric Teresi, one of the track owners now. He bought that. I did the work, got the car together, and we had 2 of them there. By the 4th week, we had both cars there. So I don't believe I even missed a race. And John's, he's been the man. I mean, and when something new comes out, we're going in I think this is our 9th year together. When something new comes out, he doesn't hesitate. He's definitely a player.
And in that time period since, 6 more track championships. How many International Classic wins?
4 Classic wins.
I mean, that's dominating. That's almost a definition of an era of Oswego Speedway Super Modified racing. That the team that you race for has been so dominant, winning these championships, all the races that go with it, and the crown jewel, of course, which is the International Classic.
Yeah, I mean, we have obviously, it goes without saying, we have fantastic equipment. If there's anything that I tell John I believe we need, he doesn't hesitate. But there's a lot of work. A super modified's not like a Bicknell car or a Billy Colton's Troyer cars. You don't just go and, put your engine in or have them bolt the engine in and sit in the seat and go. It just doesn't work that way. A super modified's a lot of work, and when you do 3 or 4 of them, I don't think it even multiplies by 3 or 4. I think it multiplies by like 10. If there's a difference between the cars, it just really leads into a lot of responsibility and a lot of work. It's another full-time job to take care of these cars.
And even more so this year because the rules changed in the off season. These cars are now becoming even closer to IndyCar technology, and the fact that independent front suspensions are allowed now for 2016.
Correct. We were on our way to, we were going to the High Miler last year to run DJ Schulich's car, and we got the call. The coach was with me in the car, and he got the phone call, and we heard that they're going to change the rules for this year, and they're going to allow the Indy front ends again. So the car I ran the last couple of years, I totally rebuilt that. Everything's new, freshened up, and that's about finished. And Hamilton's car was a transfer bar front end car. That's only 2 years old, but it has, I think, 4 races on it. completely rebuilt that. They're both 90% finished, and we took the newest car that we had was the new style front end with the transfer bars. That was Schulich's car. I believe that's 3 races old, and what we've done is we took that back to Hawksby, stripped it, took it to Hawksby, and he cut that off at the firewall, and now that's going to be an Indy front end on that car. And we're hoping to have that out, if not opening day, very early in the season. And then I'm just going to test every chance that I can test. I'm going to test that car.
And it's occurred to me in the 15, 16 years you've been running a super modified, you've kind of witnessed a revolution in the design of these race cars, because what they are now is not what they were even 5 years ago, much less 10 or 15.
That's correct. I mean, from the first car I sat in, and I drove several cars. I drove a handful of cars over those first few years, and evolution would be the biggest, the main word. It's just unreal how they've evolved from when I started to a straight axle with coilovers and a shovel nose, no wings, no airfoils, and basically mechanical grip with torsion bars and coil springs. And now, like you said, you moved on to airfoils, then you went to inboard suspension. These shocks are unbelievable, two-way adjustable shocks. Now we're going from that. I thought the body rules are out of this world. There's almost out of hand. Now we're going on to independent front suspension. So, I mean, it really has been quite a thing that I've been able to witness through the whole 15 or 16 years I've been involved.
And it's a brand new learning curve, too, when you get out in the car for the first time in 2016 at Steel Palace, because you haven't driven an independent front-end car before.
That's correct. I mean, a small block super was an independent, but I mean, to what we're going to have on this car, I mean, the design of these things, I mean, this looks like something that's going to come out of Ganassi's shop.
There you go. Before we let you go, 2 quick things. Number one, we got to give a plug for the people that support yours and the Nicotra Racing Team's efforts during the course of the season.
Well, absolutely. We've got a lot of bean farmers down there. We've got, George Suarez is a big one, and I can't even remember George's his company's name. 5 Brothers, Tommy. We've got G&I Homes, Rosselli Northern. We've got a lot of supporters on the Nicotra team. Of course, Johnny Nicotra, a key player. My crew guys, Joe Perry, Tom Scholl, Bob Fisher, Ron Wiedemeyer, guys that have been with me. These guys, doesn't matter. It's like I've got a group of loyal dogs as a crew, as crew members. They don't remember any of the bad stuff you do. All they know is all the good stuff, So, I mean, we got a lot of really good help behind me for sure.
Is there anything in the Super Modified that you want to accomplish that you haven't yet?
Absolutely. Win more races. I think I've got 37, and every time you strap in a car, I mean, of course, there's baby steps. Like I said earlier, baby steps. First thing you have to do is finish the race. And, before you can worry about winning, you got to finish. So that means you got to do your garage, your work in the garage. And you got to be smart, at the beginning of the race and try to stay out of trouble. And hopefully your car's set up that you're there to be near the front at the end. But of course, and hopefully your car's set up that you're there to be near the front at the end. But of course, I had this past classic. I got have.
You got to.
Of course, I'm on number 5.
You got to get the one for the thumb. There you
go.
I appreciate you coming out this evening. I know you had a little bit of a tow to get here tonight from out towards Capital District, because you still live out that way. Appreciate you being here, man. It's been fun. Thank you so much.
Nice to see you, Paul. Thanks for having me.
All right. You can watch the Nicotra car with Otto Siddeley at the controls when Oswego Speedway opens their 2016 season. To find out more about that, go to the track website. It's OswegoSpeedway.com, the legendary Steel Palace. We'll take another commercial timeout, come back and wrap up this week's edition of Pole Position Raceway Live coming up. Let's face facts. For some of you, your driving record, terrible. For others, stinks. You racked up more points than an NBA Hall of Famer, seen more courtrooms than there are on TV. You know what I'm talking about. Speeding, expired registration and inspection, caught talking on your cell phone, ran a red light or two. Need I say more? For legal help with traffic tickets, go to FingerLakesTrafficAttorney.com or call 315-515-0927. FingerLakesTrafficAttorney.com, a division of the Canzano Law Firm, 2 South Street, Auburn. 315-515-0927. Prior results do not guarantee a similar outcome.
It's time for the 23rd Annual Tim Morrison United Way of Cayuga County Miniature Golf Tournament, Thursday, March 31st at the Holiday Inn in Auburn. Space is limited, so get your foursome registered today. Cash bar, door prizes, free giveaways at each hole, and entertainment by Sound Playground. Prizes awarded for best team name and attire. Not a golfer? No problem. Come out and enjoy the fun and support your team and the United Way of Cayuga County. Must be 21 and over to register. For more information and to register, go to UnitedWayofCayugaCounty.org. Brought to you by Reflections Dermatology and WAUB.
At the Krause Institute for Robotic Surgery, small incisions aren't the only thing making a big difference. Our team of surgeons is too. They're performing more robotic surgical procedures in gynecology, urology, colorectal, and GYN oncology than any other in central New York. That level of experience leads to faster recovery and less pain. So choose Krause and put your care in the hands of the region's most trusted robotic surgery team. Krause Hospital. Your care in our hands.
It's Saturday morning and time for the sex drive. Feel like you and your teens don't speak the same language? This week, while you're in the car together, ask your child to explain slang terms you've heard. What does BAE or THOT mean? Is Netflix and chill the same as IMAX and Climax? If you need ideas, check out the online Urban Dictionary. Come on, parents, get the conversation started. Your kids are learning about sex. Let it be from you. This message is brought to you by the Finger Lakes Sexual Health Coalition. Visit us on Facebook and Twitter for a complete list of sex drive tips.
And welcome back to Pole Position Raceway Live as we get ready to wrap up this week's edition. We'll let you know that coming up next week on the program, we'll be coming to you from the Pole Position Raceway location at the Walton Galleria in Buffalo. And our guest next week is going to be Eric Rudolph, who has run everything from dirt cars to asphalt cars, much like Otto Sidderly. He's getting ready for an assault on the Super Dirt Car Series this season, among some other ventures, including a successful championship in indoor racing. We'll get into that with him next week. Now, we mentioned at the top of the program, this is week number 2 of the Pole Position Raceway Live series that is happening at all 3 locations, at the Walton Galleria in Buffalo, as well as the Marketplace Mall in Henrietta, and here at Destiny USA in Syracuse. Now, earlier this evening, the first main event was conducted of the 3 main events that happen in the 3-hour time window that the live racing takes place on Tuesday nights. To give you the results from that, first place went to Richard the Rocket Murtaugh. Corey Heffron was second. Mitchell Kristoff was third. Keno Sanchez fourth. Janine Ordway was fifth. Kevin Thompson, Chris Westfall, Gary Collins, and Mark Westfall finished out the field. The B main winner was Joe Weston, followed by Adam Ward and Rich Murtaugh. And those drivers are all earning points towards the top 3 who will be selected after the 4th week. Top 3 in points will all converge here at Destiny USA in Syracuse for the Pole Position Raceway Spring Championship event, which will definitely be a very, very good one. One more time, I want to remind you about the Racing Madness promotion that's happening here at Pole Position Raceway. If you want to find out if you can be the fastest in the field of 32, you can sign up now online, or you can register the day of the event. The event will happen on April the 3rd from 5 until 9 p.m. at our Pole Position Raceway locations. Now, up to 32 racers, maximum 32, will be locked into the field for these Racing Madness events, and it kind of works like the tournament because you'll have everybody randomly placed into a qualifier. You'll run those qualifying events, then the field gets cut down to a Sweet 16. Then you run another round of qualifying events where you're trying to set the fastest lap time. Then you get cut down to a grade 8. Then you get a cut down to a final 4. Those 4 racers will compete for the right to be crowned the Racing Madness champion. There's $150 on the line for the winner, $75 for second prizes for third and fourth to make the cut for the Final Four as well. It's a one-time registration fee of just $10. Racing fee is $50 per race. And believe me, when you go out there for a 14-lap session, it may not sound like much, but after 14 laps, you're going to know that you've been driving one wicked fast race car and putting in a workout. You're going to know exactly what it feels like to be behind the wheel of a full-blown race car. That's what the Pole Position Raceway experience is all about, is giving you that thrill, that exhilaration, and the challenge of competing against your fellow racers in a race against the clock where you're trying to get that fastest lap time. I want to say a special thanks to a couple of the sponsors that have been making some prize donations here for our competitors as part of the Pole Position Raceway Live Series here at Destiny USA. Thanks to the World of Beer, who are right across from Pole Position Raceway here on the third floor of the news section, if you will, of Destiny USA. And also the folks from Carhartt have put up some prizes, along with Coca-Cola and Monster Energy. And even if you don't race, you should come out and check out some of the action on one of these Pole Position Raceway live nights at a location near you. Why? Well, not only is it good racing and fun to watch with your friends, you have a chance to win prizes. There's a fantasy pick-up for a chance to win a free race. There's other goodies being given away every single hour of the live program from 6 until 9 p.m. So you can come in. It doesn't cost you anything to watch the racing action. You might walk away with a nice store prize. You might walk away with maybe a free race. You never know. And believe me, you race one time at a Pole Position Raceway, you're definitely going to want to do it again. That's going to wrap things up for this week's edition of Pole Position Raceway Live here this evening. Glad to have you all along with us. We will be back again next Tuesday night at 7 o'clock, as again we'll be joined by Eric Rudolph, who has driven asphalt modifieds. He's driven TQ midgets indoors, and he'll be driving a dirt modified this year, the chase for the Super Dirt Car Series Championship. He'll be our guest coming up in 2 weeks' time when we are back at the Pole Position Raceway at Marketplace Mall in Henrietta. We're going to be joined by a racing personality not known for his driving, but known for his building. Billy Colton from Troyer Race Cars is going to be joining us. And then for our championship finale coming up in 3 weeks, we'll be back here at Destiny USA, and we're going to be talking to one of the hottest young guns in motorsports right now, a guy by the name of Lightning Larry White, who will probably remind me of how I took him out in the Super Dirt Week Media Challenge here that was held in, I think it was September of last year. I may have to make a formal apology for that. Our thanks to Ted Baker Engineering back at studio. I'm Paul Szmal. Thanks very much for joining us. Remember, to find out more about Pole Position Raceway and the various deals that are happening, go to polepositionraceway.com. That's polepositionraceway.com. Have a fantastic week, and we'll talk to you again next Tuesday night on Pole Position Raceway Live.